Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, criminal court, and other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. And if you have a tale to tell, you're welcome to contact me there as well on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I have a brand new guest. I'm very honored to have attorney Brendan Burns on. He's an attorney with almost 24 years experience as a licensed attorney in the state of Illinois. His practice is focused in civil litigation, estate planning, family law, corporate law, residential real estate, and mainly focused on people that he has been very honored to represent. And I welcome you, attorney Brendan Burns. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic and much gratitude and appreciation for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. And I'm sure people always wonder, what made you want to be a lawyer?
I was sitting in class in high school. I went to Brother Rice High School in Chicago, and someone gave a talk about becoming an FBI agent. And so I thought, interesting. Kind of sounds like it's in my wheelhouse. And at the time, what do you need to become an FBI agent? Well, he said law enforcement, military, law degree, or Spanish. If he spoke Spanish back then, it was good. Spanish was not my forte, so
Mm-mm.
I thought I'll go to law school and I'll become a GMAT. Um, in fact, one of my cousins just went through the Academy at Quantico, and she's going to become an FBI agent. So that's great. Um, my third year of law school, 9/11 occurred.
Mm.
And at that point, I had submitted an application, had an interview with you, had also applied to JAG, Judge Advocate General. Um, and both, obviously, 9/11 changed that. The FBI was completely reorganized. There was a hiring freeze. And
Mm.
so I said, looks like I'm going to have to be, at least for a time, a lawyer. Obviously, I didn't go into law school, not anticipating practicing law at some point, particularly with the applications to JAG. But I'm gonna have to go out into the world and be an attorney, which was fine because I had. So I went to law school at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Fantastic law school.
Mhm.
Couldn't have been better. Met some friends for life who I cherish and admire very much. And then had clerked back in Chicago, over the summer. So it was a matter of was I going to stay in Omaha or come back to Chicago? Um, I come from a family of four, um, include my parents at six, and then decided to come back and start my practice in Chicago.
It's nice you come from a big family.
It's a big Irish family, and as far as everybody's concerned, everybody's family's crazy, but no, I come from a really good family. I'm blessed. Um, you know, with an Irish family, you have your aunts, uncles, grandparents. My grandparents were my foundation, a fundamental influence in my life.
Mhm.
And as this podcast goes on, I'll get into particularly, despite I won't say how old I am, but I still someone who's not with us, but I think of often and just absolutely
Mhm.
a pillar in my life was my nana. I say a nana at my age, and I don't care what anyone thinks.
Mhm.
I'll explain why that's the case as we proceed.
Mhm. No, and I was raised a lot by my grandparents, so I was close to them, very much so.
And
And
my papa, when I think of him, and again I'm saying those words still as a grown man, that's okay. I always remember his hands. He had such strong hands. He was one of the most generous people of all time, and just a my grandparents were fundamentally just amazing human beings, and
Mhm.
as a result, everything that has come, every generation since, the values we have and the type of people we are, I consider my family my bedrock, my foundation, the thing from which everything emanates. And I'm very, very lucky, that everyone was so involved
Mhm.
in my life. I wouldn't be where I am without it. I'm the first attorney in my family. Um, uh, my maternal grandmother was from Ireland. Um, when I was in second grade, she married my step grandfather, and I couldn't have had better influence. And then my father's parents, my papa and my gram, were just some of the best human beings you could possibly have in your life. And one of my children takes a name from both of them. And I was so honored and privileged being the oldest in my family,
Mhm.
just to be able to name my firstborn. That name means so much because of the influence both of my grandmothers had on me.
Oh, that's nice. And what part of Ireland did they come from?
So going back to my great grandparents,
Okay.
Cork, Tipperary, and Mayo, as they say back in the old country.
Yeah, I haven't visited there yet. I lived in England for 2 years. I never got over there, but I had always wanted to go there. And
You should certainly go. In
mhm.
1998, I studied at Trinity College in Dublin for several months. Fantastic experience, and just amazing to be able to go back and kind of revisit some of my roots. And also the education through Trinity was a life-changing experience that I carry with me to this day.
Yeah, I mean it. And you spent how many a year over there, was it doing that? I can't.
No, but basically a semester.
Okay.
Um, and it was a very, very curriculum. It was a joint program with, so I did undergrad at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Hmm.
The joint program was with Michigan Ann Arbor. Fantastic program.
Wow. So you've branched off into all these areas of law. Which one is the worst one?
Divorce,
Right.
hands down. Yeah, for sure. But where they all coalesce is litigation. I'm someone who you had asked at the outset, law school, reasonings behind it, what was my purpose. When I became a lawyer, I could not sit at a desk all day. Um, I was a rugby player. My whole life was involved in activities, athletics, student council. I played in the band. I was maybe a joiner in a sense, but I put my heart into everything I do. So I didn't want to just be a transactional attorney
Mhm.
sitting at a desk all day. I knew that wasn't for me. I can't sit still all day. So I wanted to get into the courtroom. And it's the believe it or not, of lawyers practicing in the profession, there's not such a huge percentage of lawyers that litigate.
Mhm.
So, it's somewhat of a niche. I like being in the courtroom and interacting with people, not just sitting at a desk all day.
Right. I think we need more litigators, especially in the family law department.
It's got a high burnout rate. It's a lot of work, you know.
Hmm.
You go into a trial. The trial might be 1 or 2 days, but the work, months, years sometimes that get put into it, and
Hmm.
your job is to kind of funnel it down, as you know from your experience, to core issues, and then to be able to convey that in a particular way, to know your audience, to get a good feel for your audience, to understand who it is you're speaking to, and to explain it concisely but productively on behalf of your clients.
Hmm. I had attorneys in the beginning, and then I went pro se, and then after I had my heart attack and I won in Superior Court, then I had to hire a Supreme Court attorney who saved my life. If it wasn't for her, I'd be dead. But
That's interesting. So you basically, and you and I have spoken
mhm.
briefly previously. Um, First of all, I read your poetry book. Going
Mm,
back to Trinity College, that's there was a course in poetry. I got to sit in lectures. The poet laureate of Ireland at the time, Seamus Heaney,
mm,
was a speaker. We also sat next to each other in O'Neill's pub after he gave his talk. Just Ireland's a place a lot like I grew up on the south side of Chicago, where it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, everybody's treated the same,
mhm,
which is really a core principle of mine, and something I have a real problem with in my divorce case. My so I just so happened to be a lawyer, and like you, I had attorneys at the outset of my divorce because it wasn't an area of law at the
mhm.
time that I practiced it. I'm now in year 15 of my divorce,
Wow.
and and it's still going full steam. My ex's father, both of her brothers are lawyers,
Mm,
and they have a lot of resources and money at their disposal. So I was forced to go pro se. Um, and on the other hand, I'm grateful that I have the ability to
mhm,
do it. This past year's been a little bit rough. I had heart attacks in April and then June. But thank God I'm still here, and I feel like my purpose is the same as it was. To be able to not necessarily fight in a mean sense, but
mhm.
to fight on behalf of my clients, and also to stand up for myself when people are doing things that steal time or take time away from children. I have a real issue with
Right, right. When I was starting this family court horror story, my dad said, well, the opposing attorney's just doing his job. It's like, well, there's doing your job and doing the right thing, the ethical
that.
thing.
Right. Absolutely.
It's like being a nurse. You've got to do the right thing.
Period. Period. And there's a line. And frequently it's crossed. And family law is a little bit more loosey goosey with in terms of that. And there are some really bad people out there.
Hmm.
It's somewhat of a cesspool as far as I'm concerned.
Hmm.
There are some really good people, just like every profession.
Hmm.
But I understand the distinction and the fact that my ex-wife is being represented by who have exclusive access to my to the kids and um, attempt to take that away is fundamentally wrong to me because I have a lot of life experience. I have a lot of
Hmm.
um, lessons and examples I can convey to them, like I always have. And then you have this thing creep in, alienation of a parental relationship, which
Hmm.
is one of the more toxic, dangerous, awful things that I believe exist in this world. I had a conversation with somebody who's involved in politics with regard to alienation a couple of weeks back, Mr. Garza, and he pointed out, and I thought it was a very prescient statement that parental alienation is when you look at it and you look at it as committing a wrong, it violates four of the Ten Commandments. Now think about that. You know that there aren't many things you can do that would violate so many all at once, and it, it was eye opening when he said that. And thanks to people like him and yourself,
Hmm.
out there. The other thing that I'd like to convey to the audience is, look, you're not alone. There's someone out there that's been through what you've been through. There's
Hmm.
someone out there that likely has it worse than you do, and there's a lot of resources if you're willing to look for them. And I encourage people to do so.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because I don't understand. Well, when you divorce, we had co-parented well for 10 years. And then he got involved with this woman that I was not sure if she did work in the courthouse or not, but that's another podcast. The thing is, we could co-parent for 10 years. Okay. And then you have a family court judge who is colluding with the opposing attorney. And then they just make up a false narrative. And that probably did that happen to you? They come up with some weird
It,
false
it,
narrative.
so I co-parented for, um, I continue to co-parent. Unfortunately, um, there has to be an agreement by two sides. And because of the family dynamic with my ex being represented by family members, she's literally prohibited from co-parenting. But she's a grown woman and can make her own decisions. I'm not here to. This is not my bully pulpit against my ex, and I have no intention of doing that. On the other hand, to your point, um, as a result of her conduct, there has been zero co-parenting and
Mm-hmm.
alienation, as you may have experienced, and I believe it exists in every divorce. It's just a matter of degree to which
Mm-hmm.
it exists. But I exclusively, you know, not exclusively, but 7 days out of 14 days raised my children until my oldest was 13. And what alienation does is it starts off, at least in my case, a bit subtly, and
Mm-hmm.
then other people get involved, and then you start seeing a pattern. And usually it follows a very similar pattern for everybody. And what people need to understand about it is that it's meant to essentially take kids and to break down the alienating parent will break those kids down to the point where one day the kids just have had enough. And so it's something where, you had a fantastic weekend with your children or child, whatever the situation is, and the weekend ends on a Sunday, and all of a sudden you wake up one random Monday morning and your kids, it's like flipping a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
And once that light switch is flipped, it's a very sudden occurrence. It doesn't kind of gradually happen. I mean, yes, there are signposts along the way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like overnight you've gone from having this completely normal, wonderful, um, positive relationship to just being persona non grata,
Mm-hmm.
and it it hurts. It certainly. I'm not too proud or machismo to say it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up one day and you're like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start on a path of trying to get others to listen to you and to say, in my case, it the reason why it's so hard, it's almost by the book, you know, um, because my friends, my family, colleagues, immediately, anything to do with me, my children can't stand. There was no incident, there was no
Mm-hmm.
anything. It's just like overnight. And then progressively through what I consider abuse of the court system by hiring, the court appoints, well, you guys need to go talk to this person. I had
Mm-hmm.
a guy in my case, my ex-mother-in-law, after a year of me and the girls going and speaking to this person, and this person saying to my face, look, this is a bad case of alienation. She walks in. First of all, the fact that her and lead counsel are driving my daughters to these sessions, and only my ex and her family, per the court, were
Mm-hmm.
allowed to transport the children to the sessions. And all that was a coaching session of what to say during it. So it was a complete waste of time and money drain. The person that they made us go to was cash only. So it was a huge financial drain.
Oh.
But the reason I went, I objected to the court. Um, it gave me extra time with my children,
Mhm.
and I had nothing to hide. My ex refused to participate in it. It was not conducted properly. They talk about reunification. It was absolutely done completely. It was ridiculous. It wasn't professional. Anyway, make a long story
Mhm.
short, on the second to last session, my ex mother-in-law walks in, hands a big envelope to the therapist, and I'm like, "What is going on right now?"
Mhm.
And I don't I'm just like literally it's one of those instances where you feel a little bit legless. So the session's over, the girls are out of the room. She comes in the side door, hands it on. Well, lead counsel is sitting in the waiting room.
Oh.
Had some choice words for me when I pulled up in the parking lot, was waiting, just to swear at me and say whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and then the following session, um, the therapist says, I don't think there's anything I can do anymore. I said, yeah. I go, but I want to talk about that envelope. What envelope? Well, the
Mm.
one that you were handed, the one that, over what I don't recall that. What? You know? And I said, yeah, it was, you know, so and so walked in that side door and handed you the envelope. I have no recollection of that. And just so I don't think there's any more I can do for you at this point. And would you believe that weeks later, this guy sells his practice supposedly and disappears to Australia?
Hmm.
Now, we can guess and conjecture about what was in that envelope. So then I email him to call him as witness in the case. And of course, I'm not appearing. I've retired and I live in Australia now. What? I just
Hmm.
spent over a year's worth of money every week, and you're not even going to give a report in the case? Well, where's my refund?
Yeah.
You know, where's my refund?
They, the thing is with these psychologists, they don't even know what child psychological abuse is. Clueless.
This person wrote a book, and his book is not necessarily on the subject of parental alienation, but I had done a lot of research on it. So he was blown away by the fact that I said it was such progress
Mhm.
for the diagnostic and statistical manual it doesn't per se include parental alienation, and I'm a huge advocate that it absolutely needs to, because it is undoubted. It's programming. it's
Mhm.
it's a it, it's psychological abuse, of a child. And the one thing that I want to convey to anyone who's listening to you, here's really, if I had to boil it down and say, why is this issue relevant? Why is it such a big deal? What is it, etc. I've said for years, with alienation, what you're doing is, in the end, you're teaching children that it's okay to treat some people one way and other people another. Now, in life, if you do that, and that is not the way that I've raised my children, I fear that my children will get in a situation where they think that that's okay. And they're going to have a real problem out in the real world with that way of thought.
Mhm.
Now, you know, various people treat various people a particular way for nonsensical reasons. We all live on planet Earth.
Mhm.
We're all human beings. But alienation at its core is programming children that it's okay, you know, like literally programming them. You could treat one person one way and other people a different way, and that is just fundamentally unacceptable, to everything that I stand for,
Mhm.
and all the values I was raised with. And it just is like, at the various sessions we would go to, this is just a point insisted on hammering home, and it was like I was talking to the wall.
Mm. It's twisted. It Parental alienation is insidious when it creeps in. And if you don't know the signs, like I didn't know what, I never even thought of parental alienation. I never thought of doing that to my ex, and I never really, um, my mother always called it brainwashing.
Yeah,
And
it's known by that.
yeah.
The people of that generation, that's what they say.
Hmm.
Programming is kind of more the accurate term for it,
Hmm.
but you call it what you want, it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Um, and then I, the other thing about divorce is when, you know, wrongly, in my case, they've tried finding just about every possible thing they can, and they can't find that I'm unfit in any way, shape, or form. I had to go through, it's playbook. Uh,
Hmm.
a DCFS knocks on my door in the middle of the pandemic. DCFS is Department of Child and Family Services. So if someone's beating their kids or doing something they shouldn't do, certainly DCFS is a good uh, organization.
Right.
They don't announce when they're coming. They
Oh,
don't give you, hey, heads up. Do you have availability this week? No,
yeah.
I let them in my house. I have nothing to hide. They do their investigation. They weaponized the pandemic in this report to DCFS, um, you know,
Hmm.
and started saying, hey, if you go by your dad, you're gonna get COVID. Hey, if I'll never forget, my mom stopped by on Easter, and she had made some, treats for the girls, dropped
Mm.
off presents for them. Um, I had a friend who did the same, and the girls wouldn't eat it. And that was like really like the genesis of this, and that happened. So in 20, the proceeding started in 2011 for me. And in the midst of the pandemic was kind of like the added weapon where I would have the girls come to my place wearing a mask. And I said, well, we have to eat dinner. No, we're afraid. Mom says we're going to get COVID. Um, you have a girlfriend and we're going to get COVID from your girlfriend. And we're going to get COVID if we go around your family. Like they turned that into scaring the bejesus out of my kids.
Hmm.
And it's just absolutely ridiculous what they did, and but it got worse from there.
Hmm.
Um, it got worse from there to the point where, there's athletic events. I go, I say hello, nothing back. I have my ex-mother-in-law giving me the middle finger. I have, my ex swearing at me. It's just such childish behavior around my
Hmm.
kids. Like you said, I've never exhibited that behavior, no matter what someone was doing to me.
Right. Right.
Um, I have a story about, you ever see the movie The Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell?
No.
All right. So my children were kind of young at the time. We're watching the movie The Christmas Chronicles,
Mhm.
and my ex was out at a bar and not of sound mind at the time. And, one of my daughters didn't like hot chocolate. The other one like chocolate milk. So their hot chocolate, their chocolate milk. My place is decorated for Christmas. Um, my ex is calling. She had already spoken to them. Once they got cell phones, it was like
Yeah.
texting them constantly that they felt like we couldn't go do anything. It was just like they were like glued to their phones because they were
Same. Hmm.
instructed to be. Like those phones are in alienation. A cell phone is one of the most dangerous weapons you could possibly have. And my ex has a big family, and it's my time. They're constantly communicating with them, texting them,
Hmm.
taking time away from what we're doing, and then telling them, if you don't answer this phone, it got so goofy that I had a rule just like put your phones away at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, age appropriate.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hey, I want to access your phones because I don't know what you're doing on your phones, and as a parent, that's my responsibility.
Hmm.
There's been so many studies and research on that. There's bad people out
Oh,
there,
yes.
and my
Yes.
job is to protect my kids. So with their phones, I had a rule they go away at like 8:30 or 9. Well, this night in particular, where we're watching this movie, I say you got to put your phones away, and they said, "No, mom says we can't do that anymore." And then I have to speak to opposing counsel about this, and he
Oh,
goes, "Call the police on your dad if he takes your phones." Then their mom wanted them to go to bed with their phones,
oh,
and the reason why is because there was all kinds of inappropriate text messages on their phones that I, then could see. She went so far as changing her name on their phones. And this is in court testimony. So this is public record. And this isn't her name, but she changed her name to Vanessa. And I'm just like, what in the world? To try to hide access to getting these text messages. I mean, she admitted it under oath on the stand. And
yeah.
it just shows the length that people will go to. But on one of the worst nights that I've experienced, we're watching the Christmas Chronicles. And sorry that I jump around, but
That's okay. No,
we're
you're
watching.
fine. We all do that because of the
I'm all
trauma.
over the I'm all over the place. It's something.
No, you're
I
allowed.
jump. Yeah. So we're watching the Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell. It's a great movie. I'd recommend it, except I'll never watch it again because there's a knock on my door.
Mm.
My ex had been ringing the house phone and then the girls' phones, and I had the girls put their phones away. Let's watch a movie. Let's wind down. Uh, and then, it's bedtime. And it's four police officers
Oh.
from the where I was living at the time, the police department. So I'm an attorney. I understand that I can tell them get a warrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
I let them in, and to this day, I really wish I wouldn't have done that.
Oh.
The next thing that happens is I'm thrown face down uh,
Mm.
onto the ground with my face in the couch in front of my kids. There's two officers in tactical gear and two other uniformed officers. They whisk my kids away. They take one of them upstairs, out of earshot, take the other one into the garage. I have an AR-15 pointed in my temple and another officer kneeling on the back of my legs. And they're saying, we have a report that you were hurting the kids and stuff. We're going to hear their story. And then if they say anything,
Oh.
we're taking you into custody. So I said, sir, we're watching a Christmas movie. You know,
Oh.
the Christmas decorations are up, whatever. So they take my girls away, and my girls they ask them. They say, "Hey, was Dad hurting you? Was Dad doing anything?" They're like, "No," you know.
Mm.
And my oldest in particular, her face when they had me face down because I turned my head, I was so worried about them, because
Mm.
this situation. I mean, when I opened that door, it wasn't like a they didn't saunter in. I mean, they stormed my place,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to see that first, I mean, that had to have been traumatizing. And then, how it ended up is they come back and they say to the girls, this is Dad's house. If he has that rule about his phones, we think that's a good rule. We use that rule with our kids. And then they say to me, it was such a hollow apology. We're really sorry, sir.
Oh.
You know, uh, Merry Christmas to you and your daughters. And
Oh.
they walked out
Thanks.
out the front door. It's just doing that. What are you doing in the end? You really hurt the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You really hurt the kids, and how dare you do that?
And then on top of that, they don't respect law enforcement. That's what I've found with mine.
Oh, it's a way. What a waste of resources. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there should be public outcry to people who abuse the system. And like I said, I'm in year 15 of a divorce. I mean, I was like, you add up some of these celebrity divorces,
Yeah.
like add them together, they don't hit 15. I bet there's somebody out there that has more than 15, I'm sure, but it's like, at what point, you know, do you knock this off? I guess in my case, people say, well, when your daughters turn 18, well, you know, what kind of
No.
consolation prize is that at that point? Look, what are we doing to fix the damage that's been done? You know?
Right. And what I found, even though they turned 18, they were more easy to buy off with cars
Oh,
or
sure,
a,
sure.
a
Yeah,
pasta bar. No, no.
absolutely. They get bribed. Oh, no
Yes.
doubt about it. I have a friend in particular who his ex or his wife hid some money, and he's going through that. Certainly, uh, where I come from, um, I'm not poor mouthing myself or my family, but my ex-wife's family had significantly more money, and used it as a weapon,
Mm,
another weapon in the arsenal. I mean, with litigation across the board, even if we're not talking about divorce,
mhm.
money plays a big role.
Yeah, it talks.
It really does, unfortunately. So sometimes, um, it is what it is, but there are other times where it's a little bit more than that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a shame. I know their brains aren't fully developed, or so they say, but you know, every case is different. And if they, knew who you were at that time and what kind of a mother or father you were, then how can they forget that?
You make a fantastic point, and that is I can look myself in the mirror at any moment, and I'm so thankful that even though it was almost a weekly fight sometimes in court, I believe I laid a very solid foundation the way that I raised my children,
Hmm.
and I believe that will pay dividends in the end. When we started the podcast, I had specifically spoken about my nana,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden overnight you're in this situation where you're a single parent
Hmm.
and you have to adjust to that. I did not grow up in my parents are still together. So I always thought of my grandma, my mom's, because my mom's father died when she was 3,
Mm.
back in the day when it was rare to be a single mother. And my grandmother raised 3 children, three amazing people. And my godmother, my mother and my uncle. And I always looked back because she got remarried when I was in second grade, but I have a bit of an eidetic memory and I remember a lot from, just a lot period. And when I was younger, in times when it was difficult raising my children, I would look back and I would think of her, hey, and it wasn't like we were friends on top of the fact that she was my grandmother.
Hmm.
And she really set such a wonderful example. And then also the man she married, my step grandfather, was just an amazing human being, Air Force mechanic. He could fix anything and had a tool shop that there wasn't a tool that wasn't in there or something that he couldn't fix. And then my father's parents, I mean, what wonderful people. My grandfather taught me the importance of helping others.
Hmm.
I appreciate your introduction and uh, and gratitude. Gratitude is another very important trait, something that I hope that I've instilled upon my children. But what alienation does is takes gratitude and throws it right out the window.
Hmm.
Um, my daughter was going on a trip to compete in a track and field event, and so like my ex, if I go to deliver Christmas presents, birthday presents, I'm not even allowed to have the door open. Sit out in the snow, stand out in the rain, screw you type thing. Um, Putting presents on the porch for my daughters. And once the alienation, was fully solidified in about 2020, I stopped getting thank you. You know,
Mm.
I give her a bunch of money, some things that you could take on a plane for athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Like hydration packs. Hey, here's some dried bananas or things to share with your teammates. Here's
Mm-hmm.
a heartfelt card with some money in it. I've and in that situation, I said I have one in the card. I just said, do me one favor. I said I have your flight information. So I tracked her flights on my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
First
Mm-hmm.
time she's flying by herself, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that her plane lands, things of that nature. So I said, let me know when you get to the hotel so that I know that you're safe. Well, I'm sitting around,
Mm-hmm.
time's ticking, getting frustrated. I call the hotel and I say, hi, this is, Brendan Burns and my daughter's staying there. Um, I just want to make sure that she got in okay. And he goes, yeah, sure, no problem. And then says to me, all right, so you received the password from the school. I said, no, I didn't receive a password, but I could tell you I'm her dad. And he goes, well, for security purposes, unfortunately, I can't reveal that information. And I didn't get mad at all at the man because it sounds like a good procedure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the ridiculousness of not receiving information like that, or I did a GAL in my case, who
Oh.
just talks like right off the bat when I met her, the way that she spoke to me, it
Mm-hmm.
was like, you got to, where's the professionalism? It was like, this
Mm-hmm.
thing is not good from Jump Street. And,
Mm-hmm.
just totally disrespectful. And so I say to her, one of the, she says, so what's your story right now? I said, well, one of the big things I have an issue with is I'm not getting information and I'm entitled to it. And if I get it, I'm going to people and they're telling me no on the first go, teachers, coaches, and they've been told, no, he's not allowed access. He's not allowed this.
Mm-hmm.
Total lies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to go to all that, they're time thieves. Like people who litigate divorce in that way, they steal one of the most precious commodity there is, time.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, you can never get time back.
No.
Period. I read a great book. It's called Finish Strong by Nate Ebner. And Nate Ebner was a walk-on at Ohio State on their football team. He tells the story of growing up with his dad, and his family owned a junkyard. His dad was murdered,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a lot of lessons in the book. But he also played for the United States Olympic rugby team. So that's kind of how, having played rugby and football, I related to it. There's one point in the book where he says, my father, what he did, if he did anything, I like to boil things down. What's your takeaway? What he did, he spelled love, Time, and you think about that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's such a profound, simple statement. You know, you, how do you express your love? You give your time. How
Mm-hmm.
in the world can there be a system that's designed or by no fault of its own, constructed improperly to to prevent someone who's ready, willing, and able to give time, who actually can be a great influence, who's done a lot in their lives, been places, knows people. Um, you know, on my record, I'm still great friends with people I met in preschool or kindergarten. So I must be an okay person.
Yeah.
Um, and everywhere I've gone, uh, I've made friends. Thank God
Mm-hmm.
for friends. Um, Such an incredible support system and a help to me going
Mm-hmm.
through this hell of 15 years and just the nonsense. And then being an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
knowing when you're getting absolutely hosed by somebody,
Oh.
um, to know that that's happening, and then to have to, maintain your composure, your professionalism, your character. I think it all comes from where I come from, and those were all ingrained in me. and it was meant to be almost. It's like this isn't the life I chose. This is the life that
Mm-hmm.
chose me. But I'm very grateful to people, uh, you know, uh, including my clients. I have such a great group of clients. Always have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hang my head on the fact that I've been able to survive as an attorney for almost 24 years now, like we spoke, and I've never advertised.
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of my business has been referral. And when
Mm-hmm.
you think about that, I mean, I can't express, I do express my gratitude to my clients, but can't express my gratitude in general of how grateful I am for that. It's just, it's a profound gift, and I don't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, people like you and people like me, we are not personality disorders. Unfortunately, this is what we married.
Right,
Um,
right.
I didn't know this was going to happen, but the signs were there as we went along in our relationship. The red flags were popping up, but they weren't registering because you're not trained in picking up what a sociopath does. And I think we should be warning our young people of these red flags. For instance, one red flag that I really should have paid attention to was he told me that when he was a young kid, he picked on his brother. What he did was he disassembled an alarm clock and he attached it to the metal frame of his brother's bed, hid it in a way
To
where no one.
electrocute them?
No, no, no. Oh, no, no.
Oh,
He had the alarm, like he could set off the alarm by attaching wire. So he had this thing strung down the hallway and onto this kid's bed. So he would have it buzzing. So his brother would wake up going, "What's this buzzing noise?" And he'd go get his parents. His parents would come around like, "Oh, we don't hear it. We don't hear anything." And then the kid would go back to bed, and then he's doing it again. And it took them 2 weeks to catch on that he was doing it. And that's sadistic. And
it's really, yeah, that's a little bit much.
I mean, I should have right then and there, I should have said, I think I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna keep dating other people.
Oh
I
yeah,
should have.
although there were signs that there are signs.
Hmm.
Um, it's a, I don't know, at a particular age, you know, I say certainly I am happily divorced,
Oh
but
yeah.
do not for one, I have not nor will I ever for 1 second regret, that there's children as a result. And for that, I'm grateful. And you have to separate the two.
Hmm.
And that's why, I never let this, like you said, leach. It's like an octopus underwater when they shoot ink and
Hmm.
it leaches into the water. That is a great way of describing alienation.
Hmm.
Once that leaches into the water, it leaches into everything. The tentacles of that ink spreading in the water. It poisons. It's toxic.
It is, a lot of people don't understand it. And I always tell parents, talk to people that get it. Don't talk to people that don't get it. They're not going to understand you, and then they're going to shut down the conversation, and your feelings are going to get hurt. Just,
It's so frustrating because, I look and even my own family, people get worn out when there's an issue and it just won't go away.
hmm.
And they just don't understand. Like I'm not instigating litigation. I'm not, if it were up to me, the divorce would not even happen in the court system. It's
Hmm.
not the appropriate, forum,
Hmm.
in my humble opinion.
Hmm.
Or there should be some kind of gatekeeping,
Hmm.
because when you get married in particular backgrounds, faiths, there are certain things you do before you get married. Well, where is that? It's like I compare it to flying, right?
Mhm.
It's like imagine if you had check-in and screening on your flight to a destination, but on your way back, oh, it goes out the window. There's nobody. You could do whatever the hell you want, and you get on the plane and you don't even know the pilot doesn't even have to be licensed. It's like that, you
Mhm.
know?
And I think people can handle their own divorces. We did. Um, you know, we each had our separate lawyer. Our divorces only cost 500 for me and five, I don't know what he paid. But I said, you write up the settlement, I'll look it over and, then I'll sign it, whatever. And he said, well, I don't want to go to court. I said, well, I don't want to go in there either because I read in the newspaper there were bed bugs in there. So I don't want to go in there. No, truth. It's true. And in fact, I actually saw one in there. And so,
But what did they have? Why? Did you have to sleep over at the proceeding?
no, but I used the ladies' room because I put all my papers that were this thick on the floor, and I'm
Yeah.
using the bathroom, and I look up, and in the light there was a cockroach
Uh,
on the other side. He was on the other side, but uh,
you, was it a human cockroach or
it was an actual. He was about this big.
insect? Oh, it was an
Yeah,
insect. It was about that
yeah.
big. Yeah.
But the cockroach was in a black robe up on the
Oh,
bench. Yes.
oh, oh. Yeah. You get some big bed bugs in there. Yeah.
Oh, those two. In fact, that made the newspaper too. Apparently, they infested two of the courtrooms, so they had to close those down. Then they went over to the next courtroom. These bed bugs.
Oh,
Maybe they should stop jailing people for non-support and waste of taxpayer dollars, and maybe you won't have that bed bug problem. Maybe.
that's a potential thing. Um, or in my case, you have an issue where they moved to increase my childhood, and I had said, I had one decent year at work, and not that I haven't, I mean, only one, but the second that you make more money, go to court. But my whole point was that the children's expenses had decreased because the largest expense we were paying was for daycare,
Right.
and and so that had gone away because now the kids are in school. So their expenses actually decreased. So they file a completely false pleading. And as an attorney, you have an obligation to examine the facts
Mm-hmm.
going in. You can't just make, it's like throw jello to the wall and see if it sticks, right?
Right.
And you can't do that. You can't just sue somebody on information that can be proven to be inaccurate. Well, then I get a judge who I have the smoking gun, the document that absolutely proves it. She delays these proceedings. She says it's going to be 20 minutes. It turns into almost 2 years of
Oh.
litigation on this issue, essentially. And the rule is that the longer this litigation went on, in the event the judge found in my favor, then it goes back to the date that they filed for the arrearage. So it's like
Oh.
running interest on what she finds. Well, you go back and look at who contributed to her campaign, and it's people all over my case. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's classic payola. So I have the document, and she says, "Well, the only way you're going to get that in is if you put your ex-father-in-law on the stand." So I said, "Okay." So notice it up. I call my ex-father-in-law. Oh, you're not calling him at the following proceeding. I said, "What?" I said, "Judge, you said that." I didn't say that. I mean, like tons of times. She says, "I've never had a proceeding of this nature go more than 10 or 15 minutes in my courtroom. And here we are 2 years later, um, giving them more time to argue and litigate, and they're just nonsensically. Then they say, I said, I had to actually, how I got this document's interesting. Um, they then say, once they see that I have the document, I walk in at the outset of a hearing. I walk up to the judge and say, Your Honor, I have this document. I'm moving to conclude these proceedings. It's absolutely unequivocally they can't prove their case. Let's end it. She said, Let me see that document. So then she goes into chambers and then she's in there for a while. So she's talking to somebody. And she's like, Well, you need more copies. I said, I actually had to call the court reporter from my ex-wife's death in 2011. I finally tracked her down because you know, she no longer like had the number that was on the deposition. I somehow tracked her down. She was kind enough to let me come to her home, and she gave me a copy of the debt. Thankfully, and I got the document. Now the judge is preventing me from introducing it, and what it shows is that the exact opposite of what they were claiming, that the children's expenses had in fact significantly decreased. I had graphs. You want to see it like
Yeah.
if you learn that way, see it that way. Numbers. The great thing about numbers is they don't lie. Math is math. I mean, it's
Mhm.
irrefutable. It's addition and subtraction, and here it is. Ended up uh, refusing to allow me to admit that document
Oh,
several times, and then drove my child support and she waited till she got reelected. So she also
oh.
dragged out the proceedings to try to get me to say uncle
Mm.
because I knew in the event that she rules against me, now the arrearage is going to be monstrous. I mean, it was, you know, do I continue on because I'm right, out of both principle and fact, or do I just say this is going to be insurmountable? And then
Oh,
she hits me with a judgment that is just bonkers, for lack of a better term.
right.
She ruled on a number of issues that they never pled. They had a very bare bones complaint and ruled on their favor across the board. Then I go look at the campaign contributions, and then these people are getting appointed in the case. And it, one of her main campaign contributors, what they said was, "We destroyed our entire file." So then my point was, well, how in the world could you file a complaint if you destroyed your entire file
Yeah.
and plead anything because you have no information to double check it against? And then uh, in the event you're lying about destroying your file, here's a document that will show you're wrong. So no matter what, you're wrong. And that was in December of 19. 3 months later, we're in a full blown pandemic and
Mm.
I have to somehow come up with made up money because she imputed my income
Mm-hmm.
despite disclosing all my bank statements and tax returns. At one point, I said, Your Honor, I'm not hiding cash in coffee cans in the front yard. Like this is it's so clear cut, and it was just a real
They
eye
all do
opener
it.
in a bad way.
All these judges do that. Everyone I'm talking to on this podcast, all these judges are imputing a figure that a parent can't make. In fact,
Explain to the audience imputation.
um,
It's
they
a
just,
fairy tale.
yeah, they come up with their own number that they think you could make.
Literally make it up.
Yeah,
It
they,
comes out of the air.
yeah, and in
So
fact,
yeah,
I'm sorry, when I had was suspended as a nurse, Judge Kelly thought I could still make this figure. Oh, and more. I don't know
yeah,
yeah. And then she goes and tacks on 3,000 to the arrears, putting me up to
right,
15,000.
right. It's literally like this. Imagine you're working. You make a particular amount of money. You disclose exactly what you make,
Hmm.
okay? And somebody all of a sudden comes in and says, "You make twice that. Ready? Go." It's like your whole life
Yeah.
falls apart. I was homeless for a time.
Oh,
Um, it got that bad. Um, I was sleeping at my office
mm,
for a period of still fully competent to perform my work, but it really did. It got that bad. Um, and it's just it's a terrible, terrible weapon at
mhm.
someone's disposal if they use it improperly.
Oh, exactly. And um, a lot of people don't know where all that comes from and how it's generated and the Title 4D funding and which I have explained on my podcast. Um,
I've yeah, and you've done a fantastic job doing
I
so.
try. I try. I'm not perfect, you know, but there was one that I showed yesterday when I did an interview with Melissa Strawn, and because some judge wants to throw her in jail like tomorrow. And I was pointing out that with this Title 4, it's coming. I got it right here. I save everything to my Pinterest. You know what I mean? I've got this
Yeah,
Pinterest where I'm saving laws. Okay, so
I
get
bet it's
this.
pretty crowded. Yeah,
42 US code, subsection, get this, because it's Halloween coming up.
yeah. 31.
666.
Oh, 666. Yeah.
Requirement of statutorily prescribed procedures to improve effectiveness of child support enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
Right.
creepy?
Well, it's kind of like the equivalent of ICE to people, um, on people paying child support.
Yeah, I just think that's out of control.
Yeah,
If they're going to make, okay, so if they're not going to get rid of the Title 4B, D, or E, can they cap it? What is, a child's expenditures worth?
absolutely, and it's absolutely able to be calculated. You know,
But how come when
but where I think there needs to be a here's what I would like.
uh,
If you are a parent receiving child support, you have to account periodically to the court on exactly how that money is being spent
mhm,
to continually renew or justify the amounts that you're receiving, you know.
mhm,
Like in my case, then you get these bank records
mhm,
and you look at these expenditures being made, and you can say definitively with some of them,
mhm,
that's not money going for the benefit of the kids in any way, shape, or form. So there's an issue when it becomes prevalent, in the bank record. Look at how this money's being spent and
mhm,
how are they benefiting from it. It becomes absolutely patently ridiculous at a particular point. Uh, but of the two, you talk about finances or you talk about inflated child support, and people want to say, you just don't want to pay for kids or things of that nature. And opinions are like
mhm.
what they say they are. But
Yeah.
you talk about that, and then you do have some people who obviously, mm, uh, some bad apples who don't pay
Mhm,
adequately, and but then you have this imputation and weaponizing of child support, but alienation really, I mean, if you have to pick one, uh, it
mhm,
involves people, and you don't mess with children, period. And alienation's a dangerous weapon because when you release these children into the world, they have a complete, like a skew conception
mhm,
of treatment of others. And I always say, I talk to my mom. My mom will cry on the phone. She's stopped that. At this point, she's just kind of numb to it.
mm,
But it's like the way you disrespect other people, whether it's in my family or the constant. I have a friend who's a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps, and he visited a couple times, while he was on break from the theater. And I'm not talking about movies. And absolutely, my children could have come and met this person, as my college roommate,
mhm,
and making up excuses for them not to be able to do that, to interact with people, to meet people that I know who are very good people and who would have a profoundly positive impact on their lives first and foremost. That's what really, really gets to me.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I would have to beg. if because I was, like I was so dangerous, the judge gave me every other weekend, because I'm so dangerous. And you
But
know,
yeah, you look like a ninja.
yeah, I know with this light coming in through the window. But anyway, I'd like to stop that. But anyway, I it's
You're a ray of sunshine.
yeah, I know, yeah, I guess so. It's almost blinding. I can't believe this is
Yeah,
happening. But anyway,
it's a sign. I'm telling you. You're on
maybe
fire. Keep going.
so so I'm asking my ex, can the boys please come down here and go to my husband's picnic? It's a work picnic, and because the younger one wanted to go into the trades, it's like this would be really good for them to see what's going on and whatever. And so oh, it was a hemming and hawing, and it's like, oh, this is stressful. This is worse than asking for vacation when you're a nurse. You know what I'm saying? It's like, do
Yeah. I,
I,
I've several nurses in my family, so I could.
yeah, it is. It's stressful. It's like this is the same thing, and like, I don't know. He did let them come down, but they were in a weird mood. These boys were in a weird mood because they have to please their abuser. And then they have to go over to you, and this is where the splitting happens. Then they have to put on an act for you, but act like they're still loyal to their alienator.
Oh, well, it got to the point where they wouldn't speak to me while I was with them. I mean, just ridiculous. I mean, some really ridiculous things. I mean, uh,
Hmm.
horrible things.
Yeah.
Things where in the situation, it's like, what you have to really quickly compose yourself and then figure out how to deal with the situation.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I don't know what to say, but I think parents should be on the lookout for the signs of degradation. Like my oldest said to me, the first phrase was, "You use soap and water on your face. Why don't you go get some, I don't know what you said, fancy creams or whatever." It's like I just, I mean,
Everything you do is wrong.
right,
Absolutely.
correct. People
There's
need to know,
everything.
yes, these
And
are the signs.
anyone you have anything to do with is, if they know you, they're horrible. It exactly like you said at the outset. It's like, it leaches into every area of life.
Right,
You know,
right.
anything that emanates from you, anything you touch,
Hmm.
is just disgusting and horrible.
Yes. And if the grandparents bring over a gift, they could destroy that. Um,
They've got they stopped saying thank you to my relatives who send them things, and that's just unacceptable.
hmm.
I'm embarrassed,
Right.
and specifically, that is certainly not how, I raised my children.
Hmm.
You get someone gives you something,
Right.
show some gratitude, show some thanks. They didn't have to, they did it out of the kindness and generosity.
Hmm.
You make sure to say thank you in life.
Right.
I mean, again, and that's another dangerous trait that could emanate from this. If
Yeah.
we say thank you to some people, but other people, no, that
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's just not flying.
No, no. And they lose their compassion. I remember we were driving up to Robinson, and there was some guy on a bike in the pouring rain, of course, with grocery bags hanging out, like six or seven grocery bags. I said, "Oh my God, that poor guy!" And my son said, "That's his fault." I said, "Why would that be his fault?" "Well, he should have a car." I said, "Well, what if it broke down? What if it was totaled and he couldn't drive it?" "Well, that's his fault. That's his problem."
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
ooh, now they're turning into personality disorders.
right, right,
Thanks
and
to, yeah, go ahead.
it's scary.
Yes,
It's scary. I've seen, I've seen that. It's also heartbreaking because it's preventable.
right.
Uh, if you intervene at the correct time, there is a particular way. I had another judge in my case actually make a finding that there was alienation.
Mm.
And so under the statute, what that does, and he's on the record acknowledging that the kids immediately come to me for a period of 30 days.
Right.
It's like a cool period where they get away from the alienator. And that gives them time to basically deprogram. And they have no
Mm-hmm.
contact whatsoever, with the alienating parent to try to, because they're under like a regime in which they're being like given marching orders, programmed, and give
Mm-hmm.
them a break from that and let them just be kids. Let them just enjoy life and be normal for
Right.
30 days without someone spewing this venom and this hate. And, maybe they'll snap out of it. And what the judge does then, and who is also a contributor to a particular campaign, and or various ways that these things happen in court, is instead of doing that, he says that I'm going to have to go pay for a babysitter to observe what's going on because he wants more information, which is just BS because it's just a money grab. And of course, it's court appointed with people that
Mm.
the court is affiliated with. And then we're also going to put a GAL on a case, 13 years into a case.
Ugh.
I'm on my fourth GAL now. I mean, it's beyond absurd. And have to speak about it professionally. I have my judgment, right? The judgment for dissolution, and then as a portion of it, the marital settlement agreement. It sets out the terms. So then you have my ex and her family constantly, if it behooves them or benefits them, they're going to violate the terms. The second I violate them, watch
Mm.
out. You're not going to see your kids for a week or a
Mm-hmm.
month and I haven't violated them. I stick to it's an arm's length agreement. There was a
Mm-hmm.
GAL appointed at the time. They made their recommendations. Nothing's changed. So why are you unilaterally going then and amending, ex parte amending the agreement when you found that there's alienation on the other side? And then you just have to think, like my mom says, Brendan, it's fixed.
It,
And
yeah. See,
coming from Chicago, you see some of these things
these guardian ad litems are third party parasites, along with the child custody evaluators, which are kind of like the same thing, but weirder. We
yeah.
don't need the stuff. We don't need these extra
Well,
individual.
the person who wants who's in charge of making the ruling gets to appoint the people and gives them their marching orders to make sure that no matter what, you know, they proceed as they're told because they get paid to do it. They're guns for hire
Right.
to make, and they don't care. Talk about sociopaths.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you have someone dealing with human beings, uh, a father-daughter, a mother-daughter relationship, a
Mm-hmm.
mother-son relationship, a father-son relationship, and you have someone come in who knows none of them, who starts, vacuuming all this money,
Mm-hmm.
making recommendations purposefully that have no rational relationship to the actual circumstances. And then you end up in situations where parents go weeks, months, or years, or like you said, get thrown in jail
Yeah.
just trying to be a parent. Why should I have to fight to be a parent if I haven't done anything wrong? If I haven't harmed my children, I've only helped them.
Right. And some of these judges have their own mommy and daddy issues. For instance, I interviewed this guy. He had a judge whose daughter had been murdered. So he had, I don't know if he never dealt with that, but he was probably taking it out on his male litigants.
For sure. For
And
sure.
and this dad was getting screwed left and right. And he thinks it has something to do with that. That's why I think these judges should have psych evals every 16 months. If they're going to keep some idiot, we'll say we'll say, for instance, Judge Kelly, in a family court setting for over 23 years, that person, she should have had psych evals. I mean,
This
even
this judge was on the case the entire time.
that well, I mean, I had her from the years of 2016, maybe on to 2017 to 2018.
Yeah, that's usually when it gets to the point where you're out of things to screw somebody with, and now the merry-go-round starts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, she
Yeah.
still found ways to torture. Like,
It also helps if there's something amiss in the case. Now you've only done so much wrong. So if it comes back on you at some point, your predecessor or whoever it is that takes over for you, now you can kind of divide up, you know, some of the bad actors' acts.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It just I feel
So it's a division of culpability, really.
hmm
And it also really muddies the waters of the litigation itself from a
yes.
legal standpoint,
I think
you know.
they do that on purpose to drag out the case. Keep
Oh,
the money.
absolutely. Well, and then you get to a point, like in my case, year 15, there's no judge that has the time to
Mhm.
review the entire court file. So you know you're going in with someone who, no matter what, you're never going to have an adequate opportunity to actually explain everything that's going on. And I mean, I could write a 1,500-page pleading. I'd have to
Mhm.
really get to the essence of some of the issues and just lay out, here's a lie, here's a lie, here's a lie, here's a lie, which is the great thing about evidence. But you even have people ignoring evidence, like I said, you
Uh-huh.
know, uh, in the example I gave, because you don't have to listen to me. Here's the evidence. Just
Right.
read it. And it's so hard to get somebody to review things.
No, I mean, I had a federal court judge openly admit on a telephonic phone conference that he did not read any of my exhibits.
On the record,
I hope that was on the record, but it was a telephonic phone conference. So, and bear in mind, I'm in one city, they're in another city, so I don't know if there's a
just
recorder.
to say that is reversible error, period.
Right. Well, then I go and file a motion the next day for him to read the exhibits. So 48 hours later, he dismisses the case. So I take it to the appeals court.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that whole thing was rigged to begin with. It was
yeah.
rigged.
And then everything we're speaking of, the average person has to understand the time that is involved in this, the
Mm-hmm.
time taken, nights and the countless nights, weekends,
Mm-hmm.
the missing of enjoyment in your own life. You get so enveloped and bogged down in these deadlines, and you're trying to make a living the best you can, but then so you're doing this, help your clients first, I always say,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you have time, try to deal with your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into sometimes, weeks on end. You're working sometimes 18 hours just to be able to comply with deadlines and things of that nature. And then all of a sudden you get to a point like I did at the beginning of this year where I was so run down and
Oh.
so stressed out and just heartbroken over, the time was mounting that I hadn't seen my children, and I'm going like the longest time that I haven't seen them, that I have a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And then life kind of it's just a reminder of, you really adjust your perspective on life, and find joy in the struggle,
Mm.
find joy in the fight, and
Mm-hmm.
and exactly what you said. Understand, to anyone else going through this, I want to make it clear that there are resources out there. There's help, there's support. Hopefully, you have friends, you have family, and whether they understand it or not, there are people who do, that you can reach out to. And certainly, I'd be happy to speak to anybody who's struggling going through this, and to help anybody out.
How can people reach you if they do have a question?
Email would be the best. And my email is my first name, Brendan, BrendanLaw, the number one at hotmail.com. BrendanLaw1 at hotmail.com. Um, Thank you again for having me.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how incredibly appreciative I am. And if anything comes out of this, I do not want any other human being to ever go through what it is that I've gone through
Hmm.
in this case, in every aspect of it. And I hope in some way, shape, or form, by sharing my story, I can have somewhat of an impact or reach someone so that someone else doesn't have to have a heart attack or someone else doesn't have to go through some of the things that I've gone through as a result of what I've been through.
I agree. I agree with you that more people should speak out. And in fact, I had another lawyer come on and say that people have got to speak out. That way it can stop.
Strength in numbers, absolutely,
Right.
100%. And thank you for being one of those people hosting this forum so that people like myself can speak out, uh, have an outlet to tell bits and pieces of my story. We would need about 3 days to go through 15 years, but
Oh, I get it.
I think we've covered part of it. And
Yeah.
I also appreciate your input, your insight.
I,
Fantastic.
yeah, I'd like to have you back on again in the future. And
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd
yeah.
love to.
Yeah. Hey, don't jump off, okay?
Okay.
Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't even know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Attorney Brendan Burns. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.